Hi, everyone. This is Mrs. Pearson, your elementary ELL teacher. Today, we're going to focus on the vocabulary words and pictures for second grade journeys, lesson 22. And our anchor text is the story Gloria, Who Might Be My Best Friend. So for this lesson, we're going to turn and talk. That means I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to think about your answer. Then pair up with a partner, or you can be my virtual partner. And then you're going to share out your answer and thinking in a complete sentence or sentences. So for this lesson, you will need a pencil and a piece of paper or journal page. And you're going to divide the paper into 3 equal parts or thirds. 1, 2, and 3. Then you're going to write numbers 1 to 8 because there's 8 targeted vocabulary words. And after you've written all the 8 vocabulary words, I'm going to challenge you to write a synonym. And a synonym is a word that means the same, just like combine is a synonym for mix. They mean the same thing. If you don't catch the synonym, that's okay. You can always write the word a second time. And then in the third column, I want you to draw a quick picture or sketch to help you remember each vocabulary word. So here's our learning targets. I can use pictures and context clues to help me understand important words from the story, Gloria, Who Might Be My Best Friend. And here's our next learning target. I can talk about the vocabulary words and pictures. Success criteria. That means how will you know you're successful at using pictures and context clues to help you understand the important words from the story? And how will you know you're successful at talking about the vocabulary words and pictures? Well, here are your steps to success. I will, number 1, look closely at each group of pictures. I will, number 2, say what I notice about the pictures. How are they the same or similar? Number 3, I will read each word and its definition. Number 4, I will write each word 1 to 2 times, a synonym, and draw a quick picture or sketch. Turn and talk rules. Number 1, eye to eye and knee to knee. Make sure you're facing your partner if you have a partner at home. Number 2, first one person talks, the other person listens. Number 3, then the next person talks, the other person listens. But do not talk too long on your turn or your partner will not have time to have a turn. I'm going to ask these 2 questions for every pair of pictures or group of pictures. What do you notice or see in 1, 2, or all 3 of the pictures? And you'll say, I notice or I see. And how are they all the same or similar? And you can say they all. You may also agree with me or your partner, and if so, you can say, I agree with you because, and tell me why, or I disagree with you because, and tell me why. Here's our first group of pictures. What do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice, is it Phineas? I think it's Phineas or Ferb. He is looking at a map or a plan. And in the next picture, I notice a list of to-dos. And in the third picture, I notice a person is looking at some plays for basketball, I think. So how are all these pictures the same or similar? They all show planning, Planning, planning. The root word is plan, to plan, Plan. And then you double the N so the A stays short, Planning. ing, planning. planning, planning. Planning means deciding and preparing to do, hoping to do. Planning means deciding and preparing to do, hoping to do. So a synonym or word that means the same is preparing. So planning is preparing. So make sure you've written planning, and in the next column you can write preparing, Preparing, preparing. They are planning to fly their kite at the park today. They are planning to fly their kite at the park today. You could also say they are preparing to fly their kite at the park today. Think about it. Why is it important to do enough planning before you begin to do something? You could also say, why is it important to do enough preparing before you begin to do something? Planning means deciding and preparing to do or hoping to do. Planning. Next group of pictures, what do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice a rope that is tied in a knot. In the next picture, I notice someone's trying to tie their shoelaces, but it looks like they're all knotted up and tangled. In the next picture, I notice another rope that's tied in a knot. So, how are these pictures the same or similar? They all, well, they all show knot. And the K is silent. K-N-O-T, knot. K-N-O-T. In English, when you see a K and an N together, the K is silent. K-N-O-T, knot. What is a knot? A knot can be tied with rope. A knot is tying string or rope into a loop or bow. So, knot can be tied with rope, tying string or rope into a loop or bow. So, a synonym or word that means the same is loop or bow. So, after you write knot, K-N-O-T, in the next column you can write loop or you can write bow because that's a synonym. And here's your sentence. The boy showed how a strong knot in a rope can hold things together. The boy showed how a strong knot in a rope can hold things together. That is a very fancy knot. Think about it. Why is it a good idea to tie your shoelaces into a tight knot? Why is it a good idea to tie your shoelaces into a tight knot or a tight loop or a tight bow? Next group of pictures, what do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice a pair of socks that are the same color and size and shape. In the next picture, I notice two houses that are exactly the same. And in the third picture, I notice two pieces of paper that look like copies of each other. So, how are these pictures the same or similar? They all, well, they all show copy. C-O-P-Y, copy. C-O-P-Y, copy. Copy, to duplicate and make something exactly the same, to make similar or identical to another. So, copy is to duplicate and make something exactly the same. To make similar or identical to another, copy. So a synonym or word that means the same would be duplicate. Duplicate. So make sure you've written copy, COPY. Your synonym can be duplicate, DUPLICATE, duplicate. You can copy the outline of your hand by tracing over it onto a chalkboard. You could also say you can duplicate the outline of your hand by tracing over it onto a chalkboard. Think about it. When did you copy what someone did so that you could learn how to do something? You could also say, when did you duplicate? Or when did you duplicate what someone did so that you could learn how to do something? Next group of pictures. What do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice a boy who looks very sad and lonely. He's all alone and he's got a sad look on his face. In the next picture, I notice Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, who has a sad, glum look on his face. And the next picture, I notice a man is staring out out of the window, and looking very lonely. So, how are these pictures the same or similar? They all, well, they all show lonely. They are alone. Lonely comes from the word alone, Lonely, and lonely has the word one in it. So Lonely, lonely, lonely. What does lonely mean? Sad because you are alone, by yourself or isolated. Sad because you are alone, by yourself or isolated. To isolate means all alone. So a synonym or word that means the same for lonely is isolated, because to isolate means all alone or separate. Isolated. Lonely is sad because you are alone, you are by yourself or isolated. She misses her friend who moved to another town. She is lonely. So when you miss someone, you may be lonely. Lonely. You could also say she misses her friend who moved to another town. She is isolated. Think about it. When have you been lonely? How did you feel? You could also say, when have you been isolated or all alone? How did you feel? Next group of pictures. What do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice a boy is trying to pick up a very heavy pail of water. And in the next picture, I notice someone is trying to lift some heavy weights. And it looks like in the third picture, a woman is underneath an umbrella and a lot of water is coming down, a lot of rain is coming down. So, how are these pictures the same or similar? They all show heavily, heavily, heavily. So the boy is picking up the pail very heavily, and the rain is falling down heavily. Heavily comes from the root word heavy. So heavily means strongly, moves as if it weighs a lot. So if you had to walk with that pail, you would walk heavily because it was so heavy and weighed a lot. Heavily. Heavily. Heavily comes from the root word heavy. So a synonym could be strongly. It was raining heavily. The umbrella kept them from getting soaking wet. You could also say it was raining strongly, or it was strongly raining. The umbrella kept them from getting soaking wet. Think about it. If something fell onto the floor heavily, how would it sound? You can also say if something fell onto the floor strongly or strongly fell, how would it sound? Next group of pictures, what do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice a very serious or stern looking police officer telling us to stop. And in the next picture, the emoji looks serious or solemn or um, just not happy, but not sad, but determined. In the next picture, I notice a judge who looks very serious or determined. So, how are these pictures the same or similar? They all show seriously. The root word is serious, Serious, and then ly, seriously, 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 not joking, sincerely. So a synonym could be sincerely, or I just thought of one, determined. So seriously, not joking, sincerely. The boy takes playing chess seriously. He does not laugh or joke around. Look at that serious face. The boy takes playing chess seriously or sincerely. He does not laugh or joke around. You could also say he is determined. Think about it. When have you spoken with a friend seriously? What were you speaking about? When have you spoken with a friend sincerely or seriously? What were you speaking about? Next group of pictures. What do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice a boy who is raising his hand and maybe he's eager to share and give his answer. In the next picture, I notice two people talking, having a conversation. And then the next picture, I notice someone who is answering or giving an answer or sharing something. So, how are these pictures the same or similar? They all show answered. Answered. The root word in answered is answer, to answer. ANSWER. And then it has the ED at the end. Answered, which means it happened in the past. It's past tense. To answer, answered. So answered. Answered means replied to a question, responded to something. Answered means replied to a question, responded to something. So a synonym or word that means the same could be responded. Responded. And again, responded, the root word is to respond. Respond and answer. Responded. When the phone rang, she answered it and said, hello. When the phone rang, she answered it and said, hello. You could also say, when the phone rang, she responded and said, hello. Think about it. How would you feel if you asked your friends a question and no one answered? Ooh, that would be hard. How would you feel if you asked your friends a question and no one responded or answered? Last group of pictures. What do you notice or see? I notice or I see. Well, in the first picture, I notice someone is thinking, maybe guessing at something or wondering. In the next picture, I notice a girl is holding a box with question marks on it and maybe shaking it to one and thinking, what is in here? And in the third picture, I notice a boy is trying to figure out how many bubblegum or jelly beans or balls are in the jar. So, what do you think? How are all these pictures the same or similar? How are they the same or similar? They all, well, they all show guess. Guessed, guessed. The root word is guess, Guess, and they added an ed ending to make it past tense. Guessed, Guessed, guessed. Guessed means predicted, to say that something will happen in the future. So a synonym could be predicted. To predict is to make a good guess. Predicted, guessed. Guessed. Guessed means predicted, to say that something will happen in the future. Predicted. 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 The boy hid his eyes. He guessed that his friend was hiding behind a big tree. So the boy hid his eyes. He predicted that his friend was hiding behind a big tree. Think about it. When have you guessed correctly about something? When have you guessed incorrectly? So think about that. When have you predicted correctly about something and when have you predicted incorrectly? So guessed and predicted mean similar things. All right, it's time to review your work. Number 1, planning, deciding and preparing to do, hoping to do. And notice I highlighted preparing because that's a synonym for planning. Number 2, knot can be tied with rope, tying string or rope into a loop or bow. And I highlighted in yellow loop or bowl as the synonyms for knot. Number 3, copy, to duplicate and make something exactly the same, to make similar or identical to another. And again, I highlighted in yellow duplicate because that's a synonym for copy. Number 4, lonely, sad because you are alone, by yourself, or isolated. And I highlighted the word isolated in yellow because that's a synonym for lonely. So this is a good spot if you've missed any of these words Or if you didn't get a chance to write your synonyms, they are all highlighted in yellow. And you can get caught up and draw a quick picture or sketch. So all you need to do is push pause, and then when you're done with this page, push play. Number 5 is heavily, and again, a synonym for that is strongly, highlighted in yellow, moves as if it weighs a lot. Heavily is also strongly. Number 6, seriously, not joking, sincerely, and again, the synonym is sincerely. Number 7, answered, replied to a question, responded to something, answered, and responded is the synonym. Number 8, guessed, predicted to say that something will happen in the future. So guessed and predicted are similar. So again, this is a great time to make sure you have all of these words written correctly. And then in the second column, write a synonym, which is highlighted in yellow. And in the third column, you can draw a quick picture or sketch. When you are finished, you can push play to rejoin the lesson. At the top of your page, I want you to reflect, how did you do reaching the learning target? I can use pictures and context clues to help me understand important words from the story, Gloria, who might be my best friend. Would you give yourself a 4? I could teach this lesson. I easily said what I noticed about each group of pictures and how they were the same. If so, give yourself a 4. Or would you give yourself a 3? I was able to say what I noticed about most of the pictures and how they were the same. Or would you give yourself a 2? I was able to say what I noticed about some of the pictures and how they were the same. Or would you give yourself a 1? I was not able to say what I noticed about any of the pictures or how they were the same. All right, everyone, thank you for reviewing the vocabulary words with me and for writing them and writing the synonym and drawing a quick picture or sketch. Have a great day.